Hey, how's it going? Welcome to this live stream. Thank you very much for joining me if you're here on the stream and if you're watching on the replay as well. Really good to have you here. So we've got a lot to dive into today and I'm really excited to dive in and talk about a few of the things that we're going to be going through. But first things first, I hope you're all safe and well. I'd love you to let me know in the comments where you're watching from in the world, whereabouts you are. I'd love to know that. So feel free to fire away and pop that into the comments. Let me know if you can hear me okay, if you can see me okay. I'm going to start sharing my screen in just a second. So if you can't hear anything that you're expecting to be able to hear, or you can't see something you think you should see, just give me a shout in the comments. So first things first, I've got a very exciting announcement to make, which you may have seen me teasing if you follow me over on Instagram at The Audio Journey. And you know what? I'm going to grab my phone now and we're going to do a little Instagram post. So at The Audio Journey, let's get connected on Instagram. So as I say, I've been teasing a release. Let's let Instagram know that we're going live now. So here we go. We are live on YouTube, just up here, just on here. Going to be showing some really cool stuff. So come and jump on. There we go. As I say, at The Audio Journey is the place to get me there. Let's have a look who we have on here. Hey, there we go. Cool, that is very big, isn't it? Wasn't expecting it to be quite that big. There we go. We have Hawnaz. Sorry if I've pronounced that wrong, but really good to have you from Kurdistan. Fantastic stuff. I'm using a new service here called Ecamm Live, which means that if you ask questions, I can pop them up on the screen. Really cool to have. So, the announcement. Over the last 4 years or so, I've been teaching music production pretty specifically to beginners and also fairly specifically Ableton Live, really helping people get up and running as quickly as possible and as painlessly as possible with making electronic music. I've been doing that through my YouTube channel, which is what we're doing this live stream on here, and I've also been doing that through my day job where I work for Focusrite and Novation as a content manager. So I've been really lucky to have the opportunity to teach a lot of beginners, and I've seen a lot of their pain points. I've seen a lot of the challenges that you face as a beginner. I was a beginner myself not massively long ago, so I can remember what that was like, and I remember not being taught the basics to a very high standard. So I wanted to go out and try and solve that. So this has been in development for the last year or so, and this is the first time that I've shared anything like this publicly, so you are the first to see this. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen, and I'm going to show you what this announcement has all been about. This is the Ableton Accelerator Quick Start course. Let's make sure that I'm not in the way just down here. Do you know what? We don't actually need my face on there, do we, for now? So this is the Ableton Accelerator Quick Start course, which is a completely free, practical, quick introduction to making music in Ableton Live. And this is going to be available from tomorrow. Really excited for people to be able to dive into this. So let's have a quick look. You've got essentially 4 lessons. We've got 6 videos in here, but 4 main lessons. First of all, we're going to get you familiar with Ableton Live so that it doesn't look quite as intimidating. What we're also going to do is show you how to make a beat really quickly. Okay, we're going to show you how to add melodic elements. So this is hopefully going to be a lot less intimidating than if you were just trying to figure this out on your own. So once we've made this really quite good sounding beat pretty quickly in lesson 2, we're going to add a bass line and a pad underneath that. So if you don't know what those are, that's fine. We're going to walk through that in this video. And then in lesson 4, we look at moving on to the arrangement view. Now, the session view and the arrangement view are the two main views in Ableton Live, and they do tend to cause a little bit of confusion if they're not explained properly, but there is a way to explain these as an analogy that I use in the video, which hopefully will make this make a little bit more sense for you. So, there will be a link in the description below this video. There isn't one at the moment, but I'm going to pop one down there so that if you want to sign up to get the first announcements about when this goes live tomorrow, then you can do that. So let me grab this now and pop this down here and make sure that you have a link to be able to sign up for that. So we've got Me and Our World here from on the Scottish borders. That's fantastic. Okay, let's grab you guys a link so that if you want to go ahead and sign up to make sure that you're the first to hear when this goes live, then you'll be able to do that. So let's grab this link for you. Sign up for announcements. Here you go. So if you'd like to sign up for announcements, then you can do so using the link that I've just popped into the comments. So in this next steps section, this next steps video right at the end, this leads on to part 2 of this release. So Ableton Accelerator is a 2-part release. We've got this quick start course, and then in this next steps video, we talk about the full course. So Ableton Accelerator's full course is a beginner-focused online course which walks you through making dance music quicker than you thought possible. And a couple of things that I think is going to make this really, really valuable is understanding that when people tell you to just use YouTube tutorials or not bother with courses or lessons, they forget a couple of important points. I think number one is they forget that when they were learning, they likely had help from someone who was more experienced, then they were able to ask questions. Maybe they just sat with a friend and said, how do you do that? Or they could ask questions. So they kind of forget that when they say, just figure it out for yourself. And the other problem with that is if they did learn it for themselves, it was a really long and frustrating process. And I don't want that to be the case for you. So there's going to be a full 8-hour video course coming out tomorrow, which comes with a sample pack exclusively from Production Music Live, who make incredible samples so that you can work along with everything in the video. And you're also going to get direct access to me to ask questions about any of the videos, and I cannot wait to share this with you. There are some bonuses as well, which are fantastic. So you can email me one of your tracks and you get a personalized feedback video back to you with advice on what you've done well and what you could do to take your track to the next level. Okay, so you get 2 of those, and also you get an exclusive interview with Chris Pavey, who is a mastering engineer extraordinaire. So I'm super, super excited to share more details about this with you, but that will be tomorrow. So as I say, use the link in the comments if you want to go ahead and sign up for those announcements so that you figure out tomorrow what's going on with this course and whether it's going to be good for you or not. And if you do have any questions about that, then feel free to give me a shout. So, as I say, really, really excited to have Ableton Accelerator out there in the world tomorrow. But for now, what we're going to do is jump into Ableton Live. So, I'm going to share my screen here. If you could just let me know if you can hear this okay. So you should be hearing a pretty basic beat there. Cool, so if you could drop me a message in those comments, let me know if you can hear that okay, whether the volume is too loud or too quiet. That would be really, really handy. Let's have a little bit of a listen through to what we did in part 1. And hopefully we can build on this. I'm actually thinking of sort of scrapping the arrangement bit that we've got here, because as you might have seen, I want to talk about something called an arrangement recipe, which I think is going to be really helpful for you. Let's start from the beginning. Awesome. So that's good to know that you're hearing me loud and clear. Good stuff. So this this arrangement recipe idea that I want to talk about helps you address this issue of getting some ideas down, getting some loops down, getting some ideas down in the session view, and then thinking, right, I need to transition this over into the arrangement view and I need to start getting something down. That can be quite an intimidating section to be at because it's difficult to start laying these things out into a track that sounds engaging. You don't know if you're ready to move into that stage. You don't know if you've got too many elements, not enough elements. So it's something that I think you need a little bit more structure for, especially when you're starting out. So I've come up with this idea of an arrangement recipe, and this is the first time that I'm fully testing this out in terms of teaching it. So do bear with me, but I really do hope that this is going to be helpful for you. So what I'm going to do here is I am going to have a quick listen. Let's have a listen through to this from the energy up section and see where we got to. But I think we should probably go back into... it looks like we were working just in this arrangement view. Let's have a listen through. Okay, so that's what we've got so far. I'm not too unhappy with some of the elements that we've got in here. Like, I think when we get to this drum section, like, that's a pretty decent sounding drum loop. Or if we come into here when we've got the bass in there, you know, I don't think that's sounding too bad, but the melodic elements, sort of the way the vocal comes in, obviously that doesn't sound particularly great at the moment. I don't think I'm hugely keen on this string coming in. Well, maybe. Yeah, we need something else at that drop section, really. So, this can be the stage that you get to. I know for a fact that this is the stage that I get to quite a lot, where I've got a few ideas that don't sound terrible, but they're just not fitting together into a coherent structure as it stands. So, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this section here, because that contains everything, and do Command E, which is split. I'm then going to copy all of these. Actually, I'm just trying to figure out. I'm basically just going to get all of these ideas back into the session view, so that I can clear this arrangement view. Copy. Let's get back into the session view and paste that all into a new scene. group these drums so that we've got a little bit more space. Well, that didn't quite work. So let's do that again. Just gonna highlight the first one, hold down shift and highlight the last one, and group tracks. Cool, that gives us a little bit more space to work with, which is good. I'm also gonna just turn this down a bit to give, so the resolution will be a little bit smaller now. Wasn't sharing my screen, was I? What a wally. Here we go. So what I've done is I've copied all of this stuff into the session view. Let's set that kick to loop. Just down here. Cool, so I've copied all of the ideas that we had down into the session view. The vocals also aren't set to loop. Loop. Let's check everything else. No, we need to set all of this to loop. Looks like the drums are. Cool. So this should now play on a loop. Nice. So we've got some ideas down there. What I'm going to do now is reactivate this arrangement view by pressing this orange button just here. And I'm just going to delete everything, including these markers. Boom. There we go. So now we have a completely blank slate here in this arrangement view. What I'm going to do is insert an audio track, pop this up to the top, and following my color coding, a reference track I always bring in on this sort of dark gray color. So let's go and grab a reference track. Music production, reference tracks. Let's go for Move On Out by Bontan. Now, I need to be careful about this because I'm not 100% sure on the sort of rules in terms of things like YouTube streams getting taken down if you're playing third-party tracks. I don't know if I'll just be demonetized. Like I'm not bothered about being demonetized. I just want you guys to be able to hear the track. So let's undo that. So what I'm going to do to try and get around that is repitch. Repitch this track up by a certain amount of semitones, so it might sound weird. No, I don't think that's... Oh, that sounds disgusting. Yeah, it really does sound horrible, doesn't it? Let's try going down. Okay, cool. Life of Kai asks, are you using Reaper? The answer is no. I am using Ableton Live. So this is Ableton Live 10 Suite. Ableton Live is fantastic for making dance music. I have never made dance music before in Reaper. I much prefer Ableton Live for making electronic music. I do have a Reaper tutorial up on my YouTube channel, which is all about recording, I think it's vocals and guitar into Reaper. And Reaper is good because it's there's a sort of time unlimited free trial. But no, this isn't Reaper. This is Ableton Live. And if you want to follow along with it, you can go to Ableton Live's website, and you can, at the moment, you can get a 90-day free trial, which is really cool. So yeah, thanks for your question, Life of Kai. Sam Butterworth says, let's go. I agree. Let's do it. Cool. So, as I say, I've got this track just up here. I'm only going to change it by 2 semitones so it doesn't sound too weird, but hopefully it doesn't get sort of taken down. That's my concern, really, is I want this to stay up for you guys. Actually, no. I can't do that. That's absolutely painful to listen to. So essentially what I'm going to do, this arrangement recipe idea, what I'm going to do is go through this track, and I'm going to insert markers, which I can do by clicking anywhere in the track. First of all, let's set the tempos to be right so that everything's sort of lined up. Which doesn't seem to be at the moment. I seem to remember this track being 123 BPM, but it looks like I'm wrong. 122, that looks better. Let's put the click track on and test that. Cool. So now you can see, if I open this up a bit more, you can see that things are lining up with the grid lines, like the drops and stuff. Okay, cool. So I've got this Bontan track in here, and to create my arrangement recipe, what I want to do is set markers, which I can do, as I say, by clicking just in here. So say I want to add a marker here to this drop. I can say set up in this top section just here, right click, rename, drop. Awesome. And then I can click on that and play from there. Really, really handy. I can do these anywhere. I can do set, delete, or Command R or Control R to rename. Well, that is also a drop. Oh no, that's the drop actually. Yeah, that's the drop there. So say like bass in or something. I'll show you how to use these that was basically just to show you how to get the markers in there, not how I'm actually going to be using them. But enough talking. What we're going to be doing is listening to each individual section of this song. This song is over 6 minutes long. Yeah, over 6 minutes long. So it's a fairly long track. Obviously, it's got the DJ lead-in section at the start, which we spoke about in the last stream, which is a section where DJs are going to be transitioning from the last track into your track. So, Vibe Found says, I use FL, Ableton is harder, but I heard it's better. I would agree that Ableton is better. And I would also say that I think FL Studio is harder, but it's just what you started using first. I much prefer Ableton Live because I've been using it for longer. I couldn't really get my head around FL. But yeah, there we go. Fantastic. So, what I'm going to be doing is listening through to each section of the track and basically mapping out what's in there. So if you were going to go to, I don't know, bake a cake, for example, and you hadn't done it very many times before, or you were trying out something new, you wouldn't dive in without a recipe. You'd want to know what needs to go into it to make it work. I think it needs to be exactly the same with an arrangement, especially when you're starting out. I think we'll address the sort of originality question, which I don't think is an issue. But essentially, we just want a bit of a guideline in terms of what we need to be making, so that we know that we're ready to move into the arrangement section. So first things first, let's have a listen to this first 16 bars just here. So to break down what we've got going on there, we've got a pretty basic beat, and from what I remember, another hi-hat comes in this section. So let's have a listen to that. Yeah. Okay, so let's start mapping this out using markers. So I'm going to press set up here to create a marker right at the start. And let's rename this, and we're going to note down what's happening here. So we've got two main things happening. We've got a pretty basic drums. So basic drums. Whoops. Want to carry on with this? Come on. Basic drums, and we've got the pad, which is doing that do, do, do. Let's have a listen to that. So, wow, basic. Let's just have pad. So, that's this section here. All we've got is that basic pad going do, 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 and basic drums. So, that's what I've put here. Basic drums and a pad. Then, we get to this section. Just here where it changes, so let's add in another marker. So two changes I can hear there straight away is that we've got an open hi-hat coming, which is the sort of longer, louder hi-hat, and the percussion hit. I think it's a snare hit. The doot-doot-doot. Let's have a listen. So here is the basic section, and this is where we start seeing some more stuff coming in. Cool. So hopefully you can hear that, the open hi-hat coming in and that snare hit going doot doot doot. So what we're going to do is have another listen to maybe up to here and see how this changes. Now, I can see from the waveform that it looks like those kicks are losing some of their low end because they're a little bit smaller. You can see these are the kick drums just here. But when we get to this section, the kick drums aren't looking quite as beefy. They're looking quite clicky. So let's have a listen to this. See what changes. Let's go back a bit. So we've got some vocal chops coming in. There we go, vocal chops. So that out, 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 out. So let's add this in. Vocal chop in. And there we go. I also forgot a crash there. I always forget crashes. So the crash symbol, the crash. Bontan does use a lot of crashes in his music. So the other thing that we hear happening here is a high pass filter. So that's a filter that allows the high frequencies to pass, cuts out the low frequencies. I always get mixed up between those, but yeah, what we hear as the vocal chops come in, we hear the low end being taken out of the kick. So we'll say vocal chops in and kick and low end out. And then this is where the full breakdown starts. Well, sort of breakdown. Okay, so you can. Sorry, I was muted for a little bit there. I didn't realize I was trying to give you a better listening experience of the track without my sort of noisy mic in the background. Let's have a listen here. What I can hear happening is the bass coming in. And then listen to the clap. I can really hear the reverb being turned up on that. And then there we go, that's our drop. Rename drop. So that's kick in, reverb out. Interestingly, there's not actually a crash on the drop, but there's crashes leading up to the drop. Which is pretty cool. So there we go, that's our drop. And okay, so once this drops, we get just the main groove for pretty much a solid 16 bars. And the way that I can see how many bars that is, we were going 49, to 64, or yeah, roughly there. If I hover over this selection, you can see in the bottom bar, you can see length, which is the length of the selection I've made, which is 16 bars. So we just have the main groove in here. Apart from when we get to this last section, we've got a little bit of a riser, and we also have the bass slightly change, and I think the kick drum come out. Yeah, cool. So we've got set here. We've got riser, kick out, bass change. So the bass is kind of like the filter cutoff just changes or something like that. The EQ essentially. And we've got a little bit of a drum fill. Sweet. And then we go back into then we've got another kind of, well, we've got the vocal chop coming in. That's what I can hear changing here. Vocal chop in. What you might also notice is that kind of stab comes back in. So here we don't have it. We've got the stab, like do, which also comes back in, which is cool. What else have we got? We've got the vocal chop, which kind of develops. Vocal chop in. What else do we have? Let's have a look. Vocal chop in. And the stab in. I think that's all that changes here. Okay, so again, we've got a riser and the kick coming out kind of thing here. Riser. We'll just call this the bass out trick. Maybe that'll keep it easier. Or sort of bass change, let's just call it that. We know that the kick drum comes out as well, and there's a little riser. There's kind of like a little faller on the other side as well. It's kind of like a afterwards. Definitely adds to the effect. And what I can hear coming in here is that pad again from the start. Okay, now we're coming into a big kind of breakdown, which is awesome. Again, what we had to change here is the pad, and we've also got like another melodic thing happening, I think. It's going like do 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 do. There we go. So add in and other melodic thing. Ooh, when did those snare hits come in actually? I don't remember. Snare hits there. So you see how really this is built up gradually over time. There's not just a section where everything comes in and everything comes out. Stuff is sort of taken in and taken out all the way throughout the song. So what have we got here? The kick drum comes out and filtering, I think. Just want to double check something at the start. It's almost like there's two melodic sort of bits in this. There's like a steady just ding, which isn't too dissimilar from this kind of string thing that we've got going on. Where's our string? Oh no, did I get rid of it? Maybe I didn't copy it across properly. Won't be that. It's a mystery, but yeah, it's kind of like a string sound. So this is just pads essentially at this section here. Let's unmute that. Then what you may be able to hear there is the vocals kind of starting to fade in. We'll call that the main vocal. Fade in. So it's a relatively simple build-up. All that's happening is like quite a lot of reverb and delay. Some risers are going on. You can hear just like shh, kind of noise risers there. And crashes, essentially. Let's go. Wicked, so that's how we transition into the drop. Here we've got the bass coming in for a little bit just before the drop, just for one bar. I would hazard a guess that this section here, if we listen to this, is kind of what Bontan would have come up with in like an 8-bar loop, and then he's built the track out from here. Maybe it would have been a bit further on, but we'll have a listen. Maybe here? Yeah, somewhere around here. That's got most of the stuff in. Alright, so I absolutely love this tune. When we get into these sections then, we're just going to be listening for what he's changing across these maybe 32 bars before stuff starts to calm down again. What's that? That's 48 bars. So we've got 16 bars there, 16 bars there. You can tell with these little drum fills. So let's hear what's changing in these 3 sections. So what I can pick out that we don't have there is we don't have the snare hits, we don't have the stab. So if we listen to this section, I suspect we will hear those. Stand corrected. We don't have the snare hits, but we do have the stab. Let's have a listen here. There it is. There's the snare hits coming. So, drop, and then we've got what comes in here. Stab. Then we go to vocal chop, and then we have the snares in. And then when we get to this section here, this is the sort of DJ fade out almost. Cool. That's more than I thought we'd done there. We've done some good work there. So the bass comes out here. You can sort of see the waveform change. So bass out. Whoa. Let's leave that time signature alone. So at this stage of the track, the DJ is going to be mixing into the next track. So this literally just needs to be here to be able to fade the track out. Okay, wicked. We have fully mapped out this track, which is really, really cool. Now what I want to do is, the idea behind this arrangement recipe is, now that we've got this track completely mapped out, what I want to do is go through and basically write a list of ingredients. All of the different sort of variations. So with the drums, we could say we're going to have basic drums, we're going to have drums with the open hi-hat, because the open hi-hat comes in at a certain point in this track, so we want to be able to switch the energy up there. We're also going to consider that bass change that happens quite a lot, because that keeps things interesting at the end of each 8 or 16 bars. We've also got the pad and melodic elements. So essentially what we're going to do is write out a list of everything that we think we need to basically copy this arrangement. So I guess that segues us nicely onto this sort of originality kind of question, which sometimes comes up when I talk about this method. So the reason that I don't think it's an issue is because song structure doesn't define a track. I think it's more to do with the sounds that you use. There are countless pop songs or singer-songwriter songs, for example, that people are using vocals and a guitar, and their songs go verse, pre-chorus, chorus, verse 2. You know, they follow exactly the same structure, but you could put two side by side and they're completely different tracks. Also, the number of tracks that have been made with, say, a certain Gibson Les Paul, for example, I don't think it makes a difference that someone's using the same guitar. It's what you do with it. So all of the sound, you're going to be creating your own drum beats. You're going to be using your own vocal chops, your own melodic elements. We're not taking any sounds from this track. We're just using the arrangement as a guide, and it is just a guide. We don't have to stick to it, you know, to the T. But it's way easier to start the arrangement knowing that we've gone through. We're going to make this list, which we're going to do in just a second, and we then have a checklist for when we can move from the session view into the arrangement view, and we can go through and say, right, we've got a basic drum pattern, we've got a drum pattern with a bit more energy, we've got a couple of variations of vocal chops, we've got a main vocal riff, we've got a pad, we've got those melodic elements, and we've also got, wow, yeah, we've just got everything that we need. So let's go ahead and just pull up a note here. Where are my notes? New note, please. Actually, let's do this in a Google Doc. That'll be easier. I have Google Docs there. Wicked. Okay, so arrangement recipe. So looking through what we've got here, also on a Mac, I've only just figured this out, and I've also just realized that I wasn't sharing my screen. So here we go, sharing my screen. We've got the document just here. This is just a Google Doc, a Word doc will do, or notes, or you could even write this on paper. In the top left-hand corner of this Mac screen, I'm going to click and hold that green thing, and then we're going to go into split screen mode. So you can decide which side of this screen to drop this on, and then pick what we want to see on the other side, which is Ableton. So I'm going to hide all of the side banners and stuff, and the bottom one, because we're not going to be using those. We could probably make the Google Doc a bit smaller, really. We really don't need a huge amount of space on the Google Doc. We just want to be able to see them quite nicely, sort of side by side. I think Windows does this as well, but yeah, this is how you do this on a Mac. Cool. So let's go in and have a look. So we want basic drums. We want drums with more energy. So open hi-hat. And I'm going to make these in scenes. That's my plan. Wonder whether I can get my camera back up. Can't remember how to do that. I'm just going to try and figure this out in Ecamm down here. Can't remember how to do that. That's not it. Nah, that's not it either. Okay, let's go back to screen sharing. Cool. I've just noticed a nice comment here, actually. I downloaded Ableton Live recently. It looks more complex than it actually is. And with guys like the Audio Journey and others, you have so many good tutors. It's a win-win all round. Thank you very much. I completely agree. There's so much good tuition out there on Ableton Live, and it really is such an awesome piece of software, and there are plenty of places to learn it. And on that topic, see, based on the announcement that was made earlier, Ableton Accelerator is coming tomorrow, which I'm incredibly excited about. So feel free to sign up using the link in the comments for announcements about that. Thank you for this comment. So let's go in and find out what else we need. So we also want that pad. Percussion hits, maybe snare. We want crashes. So we want a vocal chop. Vocal chop times 2. Vocal chop variation, let's say. And I'll try and find what I'm talking about. There's one of the vocal chops just goes ow, 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 and then the other one goes won't you? So but it's not always in, so that's why it's a variation. There it is that won't you? So that's the vocal chop variation, whereas just out is the standard vocal chop. Then we want a full vocal, which is just the phrase which the chops have come from, which is won't you move on out. Where's the full vocal? Wicked, so that's the full vocal that we want in there. What else? We want that stab. Let's try and keep everything together. So this is the melodic element, so we want a stab or sort of chord. We also want like a string, which is just that thing that was kind of side chained. Let's try and find out where it was again. So you can hear that kind of ducking, that just kind of constant string sound. I hope you're enjoying these nice little singing bits of me me trying to imitate bits of this track. Zooming in here actually is probably a really good place to see where that stab is if you've been having trouble hearing it. It's this bit just here. Let's loop it. That's going to sound really weird. No, I can't loop that fine. Or can we? No, the loop can't be that small. Let's take that off. Cool. So there are 3 melodic elements in this section. We've got the string, which is just playing a constant note. We've got the pad, which is going do, do, do. And then we've got the stab. And then we've got that main vocal starting to fade in. Brilliant. So I think we're getting there. Obviously, we need a bass line. With a variation, and I'm going to show you quite an easy way to do that. God, I think this is going to be a fairly long live stream. We've done an hour, and this first hour has been spent talking about the course, obviously, but I'd say we've spent maybe half an hour doing this arrangement recipe, which I think is good. It really, really does make things easier. Although it is a little bit tedious going through it all, I think it's going to make our lives so much easier when we go to make everything. So what I'm essentially going to do is make a massive loop, or I'm going to use scenes in the session view to make all of these kind of sections, and then we're just going to lay it out into this arrangement view directly below the reference track that we're using, which hopefully this shows you how sort of easy this can be. And we've actually already got a few of these elements, so it's not something that should take us too long. You know, we're not starting totally from scratch, although I might scrap a few of these elements as part of the process. You're always going to change your mind about certain things, which is absolutely fine. So whoops. Oh no, but okay, so now that we've got this here, I'm going to make that really small. And we're going to pop back into the session view. Let's get rid of view returns. I don't need to see those. Don't really need this. Don't really need this at the moment. So let's see what we've got if we just create a drums section. So this is kind of like all in. We've got a ride cymbal in here as well. So this could be kind of like our energy up. I guess if we stop that. Okay, so I think we've got our 2 different drum sections here. Let's make this top one the sort of intro one. So let's get rid of the ride and the open hat. Let's copy all of this down. I'm gonna hold down Shift, click on these. There are quicker ways to do this, but I'm just gonna do that, and then hit Command or Control D to duplicate these down. And I'm going to take out the ride. So we've got these 3 different variations of drum patterns, which kind of covers basic drums and drums with more energy with an open hi-hat. It's the basic ones, a bit more energy. With the ride. Maybe we could reserve that for the breakdowns. Yeah, let's keep that for breakdowns. I think that'd be cool. So we'll see if we end up using that ride one, but we've got the 2 bits of our recipe, so we can tick these off. I wonder if you can do strike through. Format, text, strike through. Sweet. That's not what we wanted. So once we can tick these bits off, then we know that we're going to be ready to move on. Baseline. So we do have a baseline. Let's bring that back in. So I'm going to build up the bulk of this on this second scene. Let's open up this synth, which is Serum, which I'm using. And what I'm going to do is show you a really cool way to create this bass variation that happens at the end of every 8 bars. Essentially what we're going to do is duplicate this bass track, and we're going to call this, bass change. And what we're going to do is just change the parameters on here. So we can open up the cutoff a bit. And we only want one to be playing at once. And I'm also going to make the EQ but yeah, we don't want them both to be playing at the same time. And let's make this sound a bit nicer actually, because it sounds a bit crap at the moment. Maybe that'll work. And maybe it'll be easier. I know what we can do. Cool. I've just duplicated that scene. So we've got a new scene here. I'm going to make this one like the kind of the bass change scene, because the kick comes out as well. So we can take the kick out. Still sounds naff. It really does sound crap. I've got 2 fans on the go in this room, which is making it not particularly easy to hear properly. I'm going to have a listen through my headphones. I think that sounds alright actually. I've just tweaked the settings a little bit there, and I think that sounds nicer. I'm going to mute myself as well to give you guys a little bit of a clearer listening experience, so you're not hearing all the background noise from my microphone. I think actually some other stuff kind of stops as well when we're listening to this. So let's have a listen to let's have a look at these bass changes. Yeah, so it's literally just the hi-hat and the clap that stay in. So like the other stuff comes out. So like let's unsolo that. Maybe we'll leave the shaker in. Does sound a bit bare. Sweet. Still not completely happy with this bass change. Okay, so another thing that happens in the main track is like a drum fill. So let's say that we've got that down. Need a drum fill. But we haven't done that yet. Let's go and find a drum fill. Go into my sample packs. These tend to have good stuff in. Try that. So the way that I'm going to work with this, I'm going to bring it into an audio track. Let's come to the start. I want it to be there. Cool, so that could work. I'm gonna the reason that I'm putting it into this section here is so that I can make it the right length so that it will loop properly in the session view where I want it to. And we want it to be essentially a 2-bar loop. Yeah, I think that sounds pretty cool. And then the drums will kick back in. So I'm going to use one of my favorite shortcuts in Live, right click and consolidate. Okay, so that makes this a new audio clip. I'm going to rename it drum fill. And then I can Command X to copy, just like you would copy or cut and paste, sorry, in something like Microsoft Word. Paste that in there. Now with this bass change one, cool. So it definitely needs a little bit of editing, some EQing, maybe some effects. Come on, loop. So let's set that to loop there. I'm going to take some plugins. I'm going to grab a Valhalla reverb because they've got some really nice reverbs. And let's go for a drum, steely drum plate. See what this sounds like. Turn the mix down. Yeah, that's way too much. Still not 100%. Kind of want a delay on there a little bit. Let's get rid of that reverb. Audio effects. Let's go for a delay. And what I'm doing here is I'm taking out the low frequency. So this is the low frequencies here. These are the high frequencies. So I just want the high frequencies to be in the bit that's delaying. That could sound pretty cool. Cool, there we go. We've got our drum fill. Now we want a pad. So, what did we have here for a pad? There isn't any instrument on there. Can't remember what that was. Let's go in to sounds and ambient and evolving and see if we can find some, just like a string really. That could do it. Let's try that. That's an audio track, not a MIDI track. Let's make a MIDI track. Pad. Let's double check what we're writing this in E flat major. So let's load a MIDI effect. Well, actually, let's just copy the one from here. Cool. So because our vocal is in E, where can I see this one? I hover over here. E flat major is the key that these vocals are in, so we're working in the key of E flat major or D sharp major, and this MIDI tool basically comes from these MIDI effects, scale, and this means that any notes that we put in here are going to be in key. If anyone wants a bit of a further explanation of that, then feel free to give me a shout. But hopefully that makes sense for you. So let's rename this. And let's try and come up with our pad. Now this blue headphone, this headphone just here, decides whether we can hear when we press a MIDI note or not. We haven't actually loaded the sound on there. Let's do that. Okay, so let's put a long note in here. I'm going to make this a 16 bar clip, and I'm going to press this legato button, which means that the MIDI clip, the MIDI note will last for the whole of the clip. Let's play that. Awesome. That will do. I'm going to make it a little bit less harsh with an EQ. Maybe the shelf. And also what I'm going to do is add a sidechain. So under audio effects, I'm going to grab a compressor. Now, sidechaining, if you aren't aware, is essentially creating a ducking effect. So what I want to happen is every time the kick drum plays, I want this pad to duck in volume a little bit, and we do that using a sidechain compressor. So let's drag a compressor onto the pad because that's what we want to be ducking in volume, and press on this little button here to open up the sidechain section of the compressor and turn on sidechain. We want the kick to be the input, and let's turn the ratio up, and let's turn the pad up just so that you can hear this quite obviously. And I'll solo just the kick drum, so I'm holding command and solo in the kick, and then holding command and solo in the pad as well. So what I want to happen is every time that kick drum plays, I want the pad to drop in volume. So as I bring this threshold down, you'll start to hear that happening. Now what I'm playing with here is the release. So I felt like almost the volume was springing back up a little bit too quickly. So I can adjust that with the release. Excuse me. So what I want to do now is add a little bit of variation into what this pad is playing. So I don't want it to just be that note. I want it to play that note as well. Let's see how that sounds. That sounds rubbish. The attack time is really slow, meaning it takes quite a while to fade in. I don't really like this synth very much. But that's purely because I don't know how to use it very well. Okay, so this looks like the attack. Let's bring that down. And the release is long as well, or the fade out. Why is that playing a higher note? What on earth? Let's do those two. Okay, cool. So we've kind of got we've got the pad down there now. Stab / chord. Let's see what this piano is saying. Just not sure. Maybe some EQ. I don't want it to be quite as upfront. Oh, yeah. I don't think I like it. I am going to try something else. So let's come into a sample pack. Just I want like a nice stab sound. See what this does. Is that not exactly the same sample? I'm going to try this one. So this piano can leave. Let's make an audio track, not a MIDI track. Cool. Let's get this in here. And again, I'm going to take it into here. Oh, I like that straight away. It's very loud. Apologies for that. That sounds wicked. With some EQ on the business. But then how often? That's always the kind of thing I get stuck in, is how often should this be happening? Because it sounds cool, but I don't want to like overdo it. Yeah, maybe every 4 bars. Let's consolidate that. Take that back in. Cut. Needs a reverb. Come back. Let's go for a wide vocal preset. Definitely need some EQ. Now I want to add some kind of bit more high end to this, so I'm going to go for saturator. Turn the output down to compensate for the gain I'm going to add here. Ugh, that's too much. Nice. Cool, so we've got our stab / chord. Now the string. I think there is like a dark strings preset in here. Can't remember where it is. Come on. Ableton search does take a while sometimes. Cool, so that'll do for our string. Let's bring that in. Ooh, that's loud. Sorry about that. Yeah, let's go there. 16 bars. Oh, let's go 8. Is that doing something weird? Let's have the same compressor on there. And let's get this pad to loop. Are these clashing? Okay, so to explain the trick that I just did there, select all of these MIDI notes, and I wanted to move them all down an octave. So instead of just pressing up and down on the keyboard, I hold down Shift and press up or down, and that moves all of the notes up or down a whole octave, which is cool. Mayank, thank you very much for your questions. Let's add this one in. So, first of all, Mayank has said the interface looks way harder than FL Studio. Great work, though. Thank you. So, it's an interesting one on it being a more difficult layout than FL, because personally, I can't use FL Studio to make tracks. I haven't given it very much time to try and do this, but I really struggle with FL's layout. I think the Ableton layout here does make sense to me because that's what I've learnt this software. And if that is something that you do want to do, as I mentioned earlier on in this stream, I've got an Ableton Accelerator Quick Start course coming out tomorrow, which will take you less than an hour to do, and it will get you completely familiar with the layout of Ableton Live. There's a video about navigating Ableton Live. Then we make a quick beat. And I think that would be really helpful for you if you're interested in just spending an hour having a go at Ableton to see if you think you could get along with it. If you think you're going to be better off working in FL, that's absolutely fine. But I'd encourage you to take a look at that, and you can use the link in the comments that I posted to sign up for when that free course goes live tomorrow. In terms of how long does it take you to make a track on average, that's difficult. I don't really have a very good answer for that, except I would say at least a couple of weeks, really, if you have a full-time job and you're just doing it in the evenings. I'd say 2 to 4 weeks or 2 to 6 weeks is a good estimate as to if you're doing a couple of hours here, maybe you might be able to smash it out in a whole weekend day, depending on how much experience you've got with it. But I think 2 to 6 weeks is roughly a pretty good estimate in terms of like coming up with the ideas, getting them out into an arrangement, doing some mixing and whatnot, and maybe mastering it. That's probably what I would say in terms of how long it takes me to sort of make a track. And there are exceptions. Sometimes it's taken me a lot longer. Sometimes it's taken me I can smash out a track in a day. Like we're gonna have a pretty decent arrangement sort of down here, I think, in a fairly short amount of time. But yeah, it really does depend, and what you get better at what you do consistently. So I think just focus on finishing tracks, and Finish More Music is definitely a good YouTube channel and podcast to check out if you're interested in that kind of stuff. So thank you very much for your question. Right, let's see where we're at here. Let's put some delay on this chord. Nice. You are very welcome, Mayank. If you do have any questions, then feel free to get in touch. And as I say, the Ableton course that's coming out tomorrow will be perfect for that. And I'm going to be really closely monitoring all of the comments in there. So that's definitely the place to ask any questions, and you are more than welcome. So I think this is sounding pretty good, and this we can cross off as well. The snare hits. This is up to you, really. You don't have to add in every single section that they have. Leaving out one or two probably isn't going to leave you too high and dry. And maybe we'll make a track that's 4 minutes long instead of 6 minutes long, like this one is. But I think we're definitely getting towards the point where we can move out, where we can move on out of the session view. Bloody hell. So. we didn't put the compressor on the sidechain on the string. Cool, so we do still need this, don't we? I was going to get rid of this to give us a bit more space. Let's make... I'm going to leave the percussion hits because I think we've got enough going on because we've got this percussion loop. So I think we've got enough there to work with. I'm going to skip over the percussion hits snare thing. Let's get some crashes in. So to do this, I'm going to make another MIDI track, and I'm going to clear this search. I'm going to grab a drum rack, which is just an empty sampler, which we can drop samples into. And then I'm going to come into drum hits and go to cymbal. I mean, that says crash build. That's exactly why we want this crash. So let's go for that. I'm going to pitch that up a bit, actually. And you can do that by coming into controls and doing this transpose to pitch up or down. I think that sounds better than it does at 0. I think it sounds better pitched up. Cool. Let's add the drum reverb to that. Really, I should be using a send for these, but I can't really be bothered today. Cool. Probably going to want to turn that down. Maybe. We'll see. And then let's try and find another like main crash. Let's go for that. That's quite good. Oh my lord, that was loud. Sorry about that. Let's balance out the volumes of these a bit. And let's also get the low end out of these. I'll put some sizzle on them. Cool, so there's our crashes. Next one off. Cool, so we have a comment from Mole. He says, "Hey pal, just watched your video on audio interfaces for beginners. Thanks a million. You've made it very easy to follow." Thank you very much for that. I really appreciate it. I'm glad that's made it easier for you. Let's get your comment back up here. There we go. It's not very easy to read, is it? That's better. Yeah, thank you very much for that. So the video that's being referred to there is a video about how to use the Scarlett 2i2, which is a really popular audio interface, and it's something that I just wanted to do a really simple walkthrough of. This is what's what with it, really. So yeah, if you do have any questions about that, I would definitely recommend checking out that video. And Mole, I hope you're enjoying the stream. I'm really glad that you enjoyed that video. Thank you very much for your comments. Let's jump back into here. Cool. So now we've got that. We've got our crashes. Yeah, still too loud, aren't they? Cool, so we've got those for when we need them. I'm going to make a pattern which is 2 bars long. Which has that. Which I think is kind of what we want. But we only want it to play at certain times, so I'm going to leave it down here. But obviously that'll be like coming into breaks and stuff. We'll be using that at a slightly different time. We obviously won't have it playing all the time, but that'll be like when we're coming into a breakdown, doing that kind of stuff, with stuff changing. So we'll leave that there. I'm not spending a huge amount of time making these sound absolutely perfect, because I just want to get this sort of done and start getting into the arrangement view. So, crashes, done. Next thing, vocal chop. So, this is the vocal that we're working with. Do you know what? Playing that vocal has made me realize that I think the chord should be in a different place. I think the chord should be playing sort of at the end. So after in this section, in this gap, instead of here. Okay, so I can change that. Let's copy this back into the arrangement view. Whoops. Thought I'd copied that. Let's do copy. Let's get this back in here. Cool. That loop can... Right, let's turn this on. Essentially, we want it to be there. I think. Cool, that's better. Let's consolidate that. Get rid of that and copy this back in. Cool. So I've got the full vocal down, and that is pretty much ready to go in terms of the full vocal. Cool. We have another question from Mr. Potato. So it says, am I using any equipment or just a PC? So I am just using a computer. So as a bit of a rundown of what I'm using, I've got my computer, which is a Mac, but a PC will work just fine as well. That's pretty much just down to personal preference or what you have. I'm using Ableton Live 10 Suite, but pretty much any version of Ableton Live will do a very similar thing for you. I do have a MIDI keyboard here called the Novation Launch Key Mini Mark III, but I don't actually have it plugged in at the moment. I'm just going to grab that now here to show you on the camera. So that is the keyboard that I have, but I'm not actually using. Pop that back in there. I could be using that to play in notes. I could be using it to play drum samples, sort of pause and play Ableton Live, but I haven't really needed to. So the only other equipment really that I'm using is the samples, which have either come from Splice or Production Music Live. So samples are the audio files that I've been sort of putting into Ableton, and trying to make sound good, really. So that's all I've been using. And then I've been using speakers, but I would recommend headphones are better for beginners, because you're probably not going to be in a treated room. I'm not in a treated room. But yeah, that's pretty much a rundown of what I'm using. If you do have any more questions about that, then feel free to fire away. But thank you for the question. Cool. Awesome. So, what do we need still? So we've got the full vocal. Whoops. Now we need just a couple of vocal chop variations. So let's show you how I tend to do this. I'm going to do copy, and I'm going to come into the arrangement view again. I'm going to paste this vocal in here and activate this. So you can only be listening to either the session view or the arrangement view at one time. You can't be listening to both. So we're listening to the arrangement view with just this track, but for the rest of it, we're listening to the session view, just that loop that we've got going in here, which is perfect. So we could have just that. So essentially what I'm going to do is create little ideas for what we could do with these vocals. So I'm going to drag this out here. Take that back. Whoops. So I'm going to try and hold down Option or Alt and drag that to duplicate it. Let's try. just experimenting here with what sounds good. It sounds weird in terms of like, let's not overcomplicate it. Let's just do that. I know, let's shift it all forward a bit. Nope, not there. I preferred it where it was, actually, I think. I think I preferred it at the start. Yeah, nice. I am happy with that. Let's make that a loop. Copy. Take this back into the session view. Paste, and then rename this Gonna Lay so that we know that's our variation. And make it loop. I'm also going to duplicate this, and similarly to what we did with the bass, I'm going to change the audio effects just so that it stands out to be a little bit different from the main vocal. I'm going to do that using an EQ. Nice. That sounds cool. I'm happy with that. So if anyone has any questions about how I did that vocal choppy stuff, feel free to let me know. Hey, Brian, how's it going? Brian has just jumped on and said, sounds nice, John. Really appreciate that. Let's actually pop it back down here. Add that again. So thank you very much for that, Brian. So for everyone that's watching, Brian, or Afro DJ Mac, is an Ableton Live certified trainer. Really, really nice bloke. I was on his podcast, the Music Production Podcast, which I highly recommend checking out, as well as his YouTube channel. He's got some fantastic tutorials over there and a lot of sort of free sound banks. So definitely head over and check out Brian's content. Thank you very much for stopping by. Mole has said, what do you think about the idea of doing a Zoom call with a stranger to discuss some of the more human sides of making music? I'd love to have a chat with you tomorrow or next week. That's a really cool idea. In terms of when to do it, I've got the launch coming up, so I'm going to be pretty jam packed over the next week or so. But Mole, if you could drop me an email, john@theaudiojourney.co.uk, I'll pop that in the chat for you. John@.co.uk. Have I spelled that right? Yep. Cool. Did not mean to switch that. Sorry about that. There we go. Yeah, if you drop me an email at that email address, that'd be a really cool thing to at least explore the idea of. Because yeah, I think getting us on a Zoom call and just having a chat through that side of things could be really interesting. So yeah, thanks for the suggestion. Wicked. Let's drop back into the screen. So we want one more kind of vocal chop. So we've got vocal chop variation there. And we've also got just a normal vocal chop. Let's see what we can find in here. This is the original vocal. Maybe just that. Can't tell if that sounds rubbish or not. Not going to overthink it. I'm just going to go for that. Let's consolidate that, which is Command or Control J. Go Our Love. Again, duplicate this track. Going to make it sound a bit different. And delete it from here so that it's not playing twice. Now I do want this one to sound a bit kind of telephone voice. And make it loop again. Always forget that. So I think we've just finished. We've got 2 vocal chop variations. We've got a full vocal. I think we're ready to move this over into the arrangement view, which is really cool. Laptop Killer, thank you very much. I'm fairly happy with how this has sounded, actually. I wasn't expecting it to come on quite as well, quite as quickly. So let's get rid of this Google Doc because we finished the arrangement recipe. We don't need that anymore. Let's dive back into Ableton and crack on. So if anyone has any questions at any point, feel free to fire them into the chat. What I'll do at this point is recap the kind of analogy that I use about this session view and arrangement view, and why there are 2 views, why this is useful. And first things first, I'm just going to clear all of this stuff from the arrangement view because we were just using that to sort of make our chops up. We don't really need that anymore. So what you'll remember is that we earlier on mapped out everything that was happening in this track sort of at each point. And now that we've done that, what we did is we created a recipe. So essentially, we want to have a guide to follow as to what needs to go into this track to make sure that we know we're ready to move into the arrangement section. We created that checklist, and that's what you just saw in my Google Doc. I've now created everything that was in that checklist using my own sounds, so it's completely original. And now I'm going to pretty much chuck it all into the mixing bowl following this format, and hopefully it should sound pretty cool. So first things first, let's have a listen to that. That's pretty much what's going to be our intro section, but minus yeah, we don't want that there. That's fine. We'll sort that out in a sec. Cool. Let's go on to some of these questions. Maniac says, you deserve way more subscribers and views. The effort put in this track sounds sick, by the way. Dude, really, really appreciate it. Thank you very much for this. As I say, if you are more interested in diving further into Ableton Live, then keep an eye out tomorrow because I do have Ableton Accelerator dropping, which I'm super excited about. But I really appreciate the feedback and I hope it's making sense. And I hope this is something that you can follow along with and actually get results from. So thank you very much for that. Nav says, what synths are you using in this project? Really good question. Is that Deadmau5? Yeah, that's Deadmau5. Nice picture. So the only synth that the only third-party synth that I really use, to be honest, is one called Serum, which the bass is using Serum. So let's pull that up. So Serum. You may or may not be familiar with Serum. In my eyes, it's the only real software synth that you need at least to get started with. There are definitely benefits to having other ones. I use Diva from time to time, actually, by Yui. But Xfer Serum, which is what you see here, is pretty much the only thing I use. And I use presets from both Audio Tent and Production Music Live. And I start with a sound that I kind of like. I flick through these presets and find something that's close to what I like. And then I tweak it until it's ready to use. I don't build sounds from scratch very often because I just think it's a waste of time. I think I'd much rather just get ideas down. Someone can make amazing presets and I'll just use those. I'm more than happy with that. So yeah, Serum is the only synth that I'm using in this project. Everything else is just samples, essentially. Cool. Thank you very much for the question, Nav. As I say, if anyone has any more questions at any point, feel free to fire them into the chat and we can go through that. So let's take another look at this. So what we want is essentially now we're going to be looking up at this top section and saying basic drums and pad. That's what we have in the track at this point. So that's what we're going to copy across. So tell you what, actually, I'm trying to think of a way to make this a little bit easier than of sort of how to get the stuff over. And I think what I'm going to do is just do a little bit of recording. So this arrangement record button that you see up at the top here, If you hover over it in the bottom left, it gives you a description, and it says it's the arrangement record button. Essentially what it does is it records everything that's happening in the session view over into the arrangement view. Now, this will affect our reference track up at the top here, but that's not a problem. I believe it will anyway. But we can just chuck that in again. That's not a problem at all. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit record, and I'm basically just going to play a bunch of the clips so that we've got a little bit of everything over in that arrangement view. Even just chuck these in. It doesn't need to sound good. It just needs to be there. So I'm going to hit arrangement record. Start triggering some loops. And now you can see this is all being recorded into the session view. Cool, so now we've got one of those in there. Didn't need that to run for quite as long, but that's fine. Let's launch this scene. Okay, so that's recorded, I think, most of those elements. With this bass change one, all I need to do if I want the... so first things first, so I'm going to make sure that we've sorted this reference track out. So what I'm going to do here... bum, was I recording in a loop? Yeah, I was recording in a loop. That's irritating. I had the 16 bar loop on. So let's undo, see if I can go back to undo to the point where I haven't done that recording. Cool. Make sure we turn the loop off. So I've turned the loop off. Make sure you do that before you record. Top tip. Then, whoops. Let's start off with just that playing. Open hat. So what I've done there is just recorded a little bit of all of these patterns that I've made. So if I minimize these down so we can actually see all of them on the screen. First things first, this orange play kind of button up in the top right is going to activate the arrangement view so that it's not all grayed out. And what I'm going to do is click and drag this back so that we've still got the reference track in there. But I am going to want it muted because we don't really want to be hearing it. So I'm just going to mute it up here. Now I'm going to shift all of this just down this way. And essentially, I'm just going to pick what I need. Let's try that again. And essentially, I'm just going to pick what I need as and when to build out this arrangement. So the simple kind of those crashes look like they were playing for a long time. That's the only bit we need there. Don't know why that's done that. So this section is the basic drums. So let's get this back. Let's just do copy. Why don't we start off with a crash as well? That'd be cool. I'm going to hold down Option to duplicate these when I drag them over. And we just want the one crash to start with. That's loud. Now, a tip here, if I want to add in or maybe take away a kick drum, just to give like a little hint that something's changing, if I double click on this now, we've only got a 4-bar loop that's just been looped over and over again. So if I take away or add in a double kick drum there, it's going to do it every single bar like this. Which is not what I want. Okay, so I'm going to take that out, and the way to resolve this is, again, one of my favorite shortcuts, consolidate, which is Command Control J. Awesome. So now, if I want to add in a double kick at the start, whoops, don't want MIDI mapping on. And I want to take this one out, just to give a hint that something's changing here. Actually, I don't think I need to do that there. I'll do it at the end here. We also had the pad in at this section in the track. So I'm just looking up at my notes here, say basic drums and the pad. So let's go and grab the pad. Pad carries on. We've got, I'll tell you what I could do actually. I could take one of these percussion things out and bring that in where, instead of the snare hit. And then we want the open hi-hat coming in, which is here. Nice. What else came in at that point? So open hi-hat. Oh, and there was a crash. Let's have him again. I can decide if I don't want to crash in there, and to be fair, I don't think I do. I think the kick drum coming out and the open hi-hat coming in is fine. Maybe I could swap those, actually. Maybe we could have the percussion in and bring the loop in. Let's have these in. Actually, it's a decision that I quite often come up against, and I don't know if you guys have this as well, but I get to this stage and have to balance sort of getting everything fleshed out onto the timeline versus doing the automation. So, for example, I want that volume to fade in on those vocal chops. I also want the low end to come out of the drums for a bit. But it's like, do I do that now, or do I just flesh everything out and then come back and do a round of all the automation and then go and refine things after that? I think I'm leaning towards the latter. I'm leaning towards just getting everything fleshed out, leaving the transitions being a bit jolty to start with, but then once I've got it all fleshed out, come through and do the automation. God, this is looking like it's going to need a part 3. We're on 2.5 hours already. Cool. To the people that we have watching now, or if you're watching on the replay, let me know where you're watching from. Really interested to know that. And yeah, we're going to carry on for a little bit here. It is 9:30 in the evening here for me. Yeah, interested to know where you guys are. So let's dive back in. I don't really like this snare sound a massive amount. Let's show it in browser. Why am I not hearing it like that? It's a bit better. I'm going to right click on the grid here and set it to 16th notes because that's the pattern that I want the snare to do, which is like that kind of pattern. And then I'm going to press B to bring up the pencil tool, which you can do up in the top right just here. Draw out those snares. So first thing I'm going to do is bring down the sustain all the way in this so that we have control over how long the sample lasts for. Oops, let's set that on a loop. Okay, so the next thing that I'm going to do is double click on this and I'm going to apply a groove file. Now this is going to move every other note out of time slightly and it gives it a bit more of a human feel. So to get the grooves, you double click on the MIDI clip itself and then in this notes section, just hit this little kind of refresh button and that's going to take you to the grooves in here. I really like MPC, and then we want 16, swing, and you can preview them here. So you can hear as we get up to like 70, the notes are being really thrown out of time. I don't want it to be that off, that sort of extreme, but I'm going to go for this one. There we go. I'm going to press Command A and just shorten all of these notes down a little bit. It's not very... Awesome. So again, I'm not going to do the automation at the moment. I am probably going to fade that in a little bit more than is happening at the moment. Awesome. So what I need now is a riser, I think, something to really make the listener think, right, that's about to drop. Perfect. This is going to be perfect. Yeah, I like it. Right, that can go on effects. Now, be careful of these because that will be crazy loud. And if you don't believe me, I will prove it to you. Actually, it's not that bad. Ah, that's because the track's already at -20. Let's turn this down a touch. Now I'm going to EQ that because I want it to be a bit more sizzly. I want a bit more high end in it. So let's hear where the drop's going to go. It's going to sound really disappointing at the moment. That's where we're going to have our drop. Cool. Make this every day, bro. Maneuver de boy. Thank you very well. Thank you. I think. Cool. Yeah, that's what I thought you meant. Yeah, I'm really glad that you're finding this helpful. If there is if there are any specific topics you want me to do, or if you are just happy sort of sitting and watching me make music like this, then I will definitely do more of this, because it's yeah, really good fun to do. And if it's helpful, then yeah, I'm really happy with that. Cool. Let's get our drop in here. We all want it. So let's copy this section. I'm gonna hold down Option and drag this into here. Now we don't want the vocals in at the moment. Don't think we want this stuff. That's the one. That bass sounds weird. Cool, so let's listen back to what we've got so far. Let's get that out of the way. Close up some of these so we can see it a little bit better. Let's listen from start to finish. Well, start to where we are now. There we go. So that's what we have so far. This pretty much carries on. Another thing that we didn't do is the reverb on this breakdown section. So on the drums, on this drum bus, what I can do, just to imitate what the sound will be like, use this reverb send. Add reverb to that. Nice. I think that's sounding pretty damn cool. Excuse my language. And we're going to get to this first point where we need the bass kind of break thing. Where the kick comes out. And the reason I told you to make a separate track for that is because obviously we've put the effects on this track, so we've changed the EQ and whatnot. So now I can just copy the same pattern down here. Ah, not quite there. Did it too early. It's gone too early. Let's get our drum fill in there as well. Crashes. just realised I was on mute for a considerable amount of time there. I hope all of that made sense that I was doing there. Let me know if you need anything explaining there. Let's jump in and pull up this question. So Mayank asks, who taught you to produce, or did you just self-learn? This is a really good question. A little bit of both. So I did go to university for 3 years. I did a BSc in audio recording and production. I did one module over those 3 years of using Ableton. Mainly we used Logic, and mainly it was recording bands, recording singers, recording microphones, acoustics, a lot of theory stuff as well. Theory is in physics, maths, acoustics, not music theory necessarily. So I did go to university, and I guess that gave me an introduction to sort of samplers, audio, MIDI, more in Logic though. So that definitely gave me a foundation, but I had one module at university where we were taught Ableton, and I didn't get on with it then. I really didn't get on with Ableton at all. Logic made a lot more sense to me. I didn't understand the two different views, didn't understand why you would use those. So I did essentially teach myself Ableton. I had a little bit of a background of music technology, I guess, in general. So what MIDI is, what sample is. And I think you tend to see a lot of people say that they're self-taught. And when you do see people say that they're self-taught, I think there's a couple of things that you should bear in mind is, number one, if they are completely self-taught, then it was probably a really long, quite sort of unpleasant process, with a lot of frustration and a lot of overwhelm. Whereas the other point to bear in mind is that they probably weren't completely self-taught. Like, I definitely wouldn't call myself completely self-taught in Ableton. I've had an incredible mentor called Keith Mills for a lot of the time that I've been using Ableton. He has helped me sort of, once I got to know how to use Ableton, he's helped me make the most of it. So I think there's a lot of value in getting coaching through the early stages at least. So the answer is kind of a mix. I sort of taught myself Ableton, but I did have background in music technology before that. It was my degree. I work for a company called Focusrite and Novation. So Focusrite that make the Scala interfaces, and Novation that make the launch pads and the keyboards. That's my day job. I'm a content manager there, so that I pick up a bit of knowledge there, obviously, as well. But yeah, that's a little sort of whistle stop tour of my history of sort of how I learned all of this stuff. So yeah, hopefully that's helpful. Thank you for the question. Right, where are we at? We're almost at 3 hours. Thank you guys for sticking with me here. I hope this is helpful. I don't know if we're going to do the full thing here, because yeah, it's almost 10 o'clock at night. It's past my bedtime. I really do want to just carry on though. Like all of those memes that you see about music producers, like just working through the night when they get into something. I can so relate to that. Tonight, I could so easily just rattle through all of this, get it done tonight, and I'd be more than happy with that, and I'd be paying for it tomorrow. But let's jump in and have a look here. And the chord. What's this saying? Nice. I feel like I kind of want to bring the string in there. I'm going to listen from a little bit further back and determine whether I want to bring the string in there, because I think I might. Okay, so this is where it starts sort of fading down to go into the main drop. So we need the other melodic thing. Did we do the other melodic thing? Yeah, let's bring the pad in. Hang on. Let's duplicate 08. down here. And then at this point I would start filtering out the bass. And let's bring in nice. So this is where we come into the big breakdown. Sweet. Now, this is where we bring in the main vocal.
We gonna lay our love on the line. Lay our love on the line. We gonna lay our love on the line. We gonna lay our love on the line. We gonna lay our.
Sweet.
We gonna.
I'm going to try bringing this stuff back in about halfway through the breakdown. Nope, didn't want to move it. I'm going to copy it.
We gonna lay our love on the line. We gonna lay our love on.
But what I'll do when that all comes in there, I'll have this on and I'm going to filter it down.
We gonna lay our love on the line. 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 We gonna lay our love on the line.
And then our snare roll.
We gonna lay our love on the line. We gonna lay our love on the line. We gonna lay our love on the line.
Also, trick I was going to show you with this effects. Because it sounds a little bit abrupt maybe here. I'll put that drum bass effect on. I don't want that. So what we can do is copy this. So I'm going to hold down Alt, drag this to here. I'm going to double click on it and I'm going to hit this rev button, which is reverse. But we don't want it to last quite that long. Just want this to fade out a bit quicker. Obviously that'll be fading in. Nice. I'm dragging this filter just here. Needs to be up there. Why is that? Where? Oh, because this is on. Oh, we've still got that ride to use, haven't we? Let's copy that across. Let's take the stab out. Trying to work out why it sounded weird. There's no bloody bass line. When you start getting to this stage, it's probably because you've been doing it for a little bit too long. Yeah, man, I'm happy with this. Drum fill in there. Let's go from the breakdown.
We gonna lay our love on the line. 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 We gonna lay. Love on the line. We gonna lay our love on the line. We gonna lay our love on the line. We gonna lay our love on the line. We gonna lay our.
Let's bring that stab back in.
We gonna lay our love on the line. We gonna lay our love.
Maybe that string should come out.
Lay our love on the line. We gonna 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 lay our love on the line. We gonna.
Nice.
We gonna lay our love on the line. 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 We gonna. We gonna lay our love on the line. We gonna lay our love.
Okay, so the vocal changes up here.
Love on the line. Gonna lay. Gonna lay. Gonna lay. Gonna lay out. Gonna lay. Gonna lay. Gonna lay. Gonna lay out. Gonna lay. Gonna lay. Gonna lay. Gonna lay out. Gonna lay. Gonna lay.
We've done it. Would you look at that? right place, is it? Wicked. Let's give ourselves a round of applause. We've just finished an arrangement in a few hours. That is absolutely unheard of for me. Generally, this takes me so much longer, and I think this arrangement recipe idea, I think this works. I mean, the evidence that it works is right in front of us. We've got an arrangement done. Let's have a listen through from start to finish on this. Obviously, something to point out here is that we haven't done any automation yet. So things like the snare rolls, things like things fading in and out, things like the reverb coming in on the drums and the breakdowns. There's bits like that we need to go in and do. But I think just as we touched on, as I got to, I think it was when I got to about here in the arrangement when we were doing this first snare roll, I was kind of thinking out loud with you, and I was saying, I wonder whether I should just flesh out everything and then do all of the automation afterwards. And I think that was the right decision because, personally, I feel really motivated and really happy that I've got to this stage with all of this arranging done. And now I can go through, do the automation. What I would probably do at this point is a faders up mix, which I explain in the course, which is coming out tomorrow. Very excited for you all to see that. Where essentially I drag all of the volume faders down to 0. I bring the kick drum up to around -12. Then I bring the clap up until it's balanced. Then I bring the next thing up until it's balanced and do that all the way through before I've done any automation. And that really makes sure that everything is balanced in terms of volume before you start cracking on. But man, this works. This really does work. I am super, super chuffed with that. So bear in mind, as we listen through to it this time, that, of course, no automation has been done, as we say, so things will be fading in and out. There'll be reverb where in the breakdowns and stuff, which isn't there at the moment, but I'd say this would probably take another few hours to finish. But, man, I think this is really good progress, considering it can take me weeks to get arrangements done. We've managed to do it in a few hours, and I think this is a really good achievement. So let's have a listen start to finish. Let's get rid of those double kicks. There we go. I'm really, really happy with that, actually. I think this arrangement recipe idea does work. So I think I'm going to make a more concise video about it, sort of breaking it down so that you can implement it without sort of having to come all the way back through the stream. But essentially, the steps of it are find a reference track, go through and do what we've done here with the markers. And you don't have to be too specific with what these are. You don't need to know the specific names. By the way, thank you for all the comments as well. I really, really appreciate that. Mayank is getting Ableton tomorrow. I think you're going to absolutely love it. And I think after seeing what you've seen here, I think that will have put ideas into your head about what you can possibly do with Ableton. And I'm sure you're gonna be able to really take the bull by the horns and start making some really cool music in here. So yeah, as I say, thank you very much for all of your comments. Radiant Productions, Mayank, and Yana, I really appreciate it. So the steps are coming in and mapping out your reference track. So it doesn't have to be too specific, as I say, but in the Ableton Accelerator course that's coming out tomorrow, there is a whole module called Learn Your Sounds. And that module teaches you how to identify what a lead is versus a stab versus an atmosphere versus a pad versus an open hi-hat. You're going to be able to listen to the tunes that you love and say, that's that and that's that. And also, having that skill is going to be incredibly valuable for this arrangement recipe kind of idea just here. So that's step one, is go through and map out what's happening everywhere. And once you've done that, create your arrangement recipe. So where's my Google Doc? I closed it, but just make a list of it, all of the elements that have gone into this. So you just run through here and say, right, we need a pad, we need a couple of different vocal chops, as we did earlier in this stream. Then what you want to do is essentially just it's like painting by numbers. I mean, it gets so easy at this point. You've seen where I've sort of taken some artistic license and I preferred to keep these kick drums in, for example, which wasn't in the original track. There are a couple of bits where I've changed what's been happening, but overall, what I've done is just fill in what was there. I mean, you saw how easy that arrangement was for me to do. Arrangement is incredibly difficult for a lot of producers, whereas that just worked. I mean, you can probably tell that this is the first time I've done this properly, and the first time that I've taught it, and I think that's gone pretty well. And Mayank agrees. As I said, really, really appreciate the comment. Mayank, make sure that you've signed up using the link in the description so that you get the emails tomorrow when the Ableton Accelerator course becomes available, because I think yourself especially, you're going to get a lot from it. Just the quick start course, which is under an hour long, you can go through and you will understand how to make this stuff in Ableton Live, at least the beginnings, and then the full Ableton Accelerator course will really take you to the next level. So I really, really am glad that you've enjoyed this. What I'm going to do is say, if you have any more questions, put them into the chat now. I'm going to start sort of wrapping up and start signing off. Not going to do any more production. I think my housemates will probably appreciate that. But as I say, I'm going to start signing off. So first and foremost, thank you very much to the people that have been here for this whole stream. It's been a long one. It's 3.5. We've just gone over 3.5 hours, which I think is fantastic. It's been really good fun. I could quite easily do another 3.5 hours with you. This has been really good fun. The arrangement recipe idea in this video, I think we've just seen, works. So once you can sort of make the elements, which really doesn't take too long to learn, you can flesh them out like we've done there using this idea, and it works. I'm really, really happy with the outcome there. So as I mentioned at the start of the video, and I've been sort of hinting to throughout, Ableton Accelerator drops tomorrow. This has been over a year in the making, and if you are a beginner that wants to learn Ableton, or you've tried to learn Ableton before and got intimidated, or you use a different piece of software but you've heard that Ableton is great for making dance music like this, then I highly, highly recommend that you use the link in the description, or in the comments, the link that I've posted in the comments. to make sure that you're signed up and make sure that you can go through and grab Ableton Accelerator, or at least check out the details when it goes live tomorrow. If you're watching this on the replay, then in the description of this video, you're going to find a link to the free course and a link to the main course for you to check out the details of that. And I'd really encourage you to do so because, as I say, it's been a year in the making. The results that I've seen people getting from it through the testing has been absolutely fantastic. And I really want those results for you guys as well. So I haven't seen any more comments in there, but thank you very much for all tuning in. I'm going to give it another few seconds, and if anyone has any questions, feel free to fire them in. But I would say keep an eye on YouTube. I'm going to be posting a video tomorrow with the announcement with some more details. So keep an eye out there because you'll be able to see a video. Also, if you're signed up, then keep an eye out on your emails. There is going to be introductory pricing on Ableton Accelerator. Thank you very much, Hayden. Appreciate it. There's going to be introductory pricing on Ableton Accelerator. So for the first 5 days of it being live, you're going to be able to get a really good price, and then it's going to go up to its full price and it's going to stay there. So if you're on the list and you act this week, you are going to get into this training at a really, really good price. So if anyone wants any more details about that, feel free to ask and I'd be more than happy to share. But as I say, keep an eye out for that video tomorrow. Keep an eye on your emails. And I really think this is going to be a fantastic resource to help you start seeing excellent results in making music in Ableton Live. There we go. 3 hours and 35 minutes I think we're going to be finishing on. As I say, really, really appreciate you guys spending your evenings with me, your Sundays, your day of rest. I hope you gained something from this. If you do have any questions, leave them in the comments. But that is going to wrap it up for today. Thank you very much and good night.